Hey, everyone. Welcome to week 4 of Coffee Time. I'm Rhonda, your mobility maestro, and I help organizations bring harmony to their mobility environments so scale doesn't turn into stress. And as always, Michael with this series is simple. Let's make it make sense. Coffee time. So, I just want to take a moment to reflect on this weekend. It's been a rough weekend, I think, for everyone. And we're dealing with a lot of, I would say, a lack of clarity. And we talked about in week 1 clarity. In week 2, we talked about clarity debt. What does it cost when there's a lack of clarity? And so I think right now, if we apply what we've talked about to just today in general, there is a clarity debt is costing us a little bit of costing us some stress, some worry, just not knowing. But I would encourage everyone to try to stay as calm as possible, to keep your faith up, and let's just keep pressing forward. So again, week 1 was about clarity. Week 2 was about clarity debt. Week 3 was about control. And you can go to my LinkedIn posts and catch those replays anytime you want. Just go to the post and you'll see them tagged there. They're pinned at the top, so you can go find them and review them. So as you can see, there is a QR code on the screen where you can book a meeting and get on my calendar. By doing so, you will get access to our playbook. That playbook is called the 2026 State of Managed Mobility. It's put together by my president, DJ Orub, and my CEO, Rocky Thurston. It's a great read, chock full of valuable information. And uh, the first 8 weeks of this coffee time is dedicated to that playbook. We have gleaned from that playbook some nuggets that are important for you guys, and we'll continue to push right along. So today's topic is securing mobility at scale. Securing mobility at scale. And for the past few weeks, we've talked about drift, cost, and control, right? Today, we're going to kick off our SIPs talking about protection. Because if you've got clarity and you've got control, how much does it matter if they don't hold under pressure? You're starting over every time there's pressure. So you've got to have that security that keeps reinforces that clarity and that control, right? As I've said in the past, exposure rarely begins with a breach. It begins with weakened enforcement. So it's super, super important for you to enforce any policies and procedures that you put in place to protect your security, the security of your organization and your mobility environment. All right, so we'll skip right along to slide 1, and that is enterprise mobility, securing at scale. Again, you'll find a QR code there that is worth your time. I think this one will take you directly to an ability to download the playbook. As I said, today's focus is on securing mobility at scale and not just defining policy, but ensuring that that policy is enforced. Okay. So at scale, governance without enforcement, it basically creates false confidence. You can put all the work you want to into policy, but if you're not enforcing it, all you have is false confidence. All right, moving right along. Where exposure builds, you basically, exposure does build kind of under the surface, is kind of quietly building, and it usually happens in 3 places. One is visibility gaps, 2 is unenforced policy, and 3 is unmanaged endpoints. Basically, if you can't see every endpoint clearly, then you can't secure it confidently. And that doesn't mean that you've got to know this in your head, but you've got to have it at your fingertips. So let's talk about what you see on your screen here. Visibility gaps. Visibility gaps are endpoints that exist without any inventory associated with them. You've got unknown devices operating without oversight, and they're all over your enterprise perimeter. Who's responsible for that? And if it's you, and this is you, I would definitely be concerned and look at fixing that. Exposure builds through unenforced policy. So again, like I mentioned, you've got policy on paper, but it's either inconsistent in terms of enforcement, or there is just no enforcement at all on the operational layer. And that is definitely a pressure point for exposure to build. And then unmanaged endpoints. You've got BYOD and contractor devices, IoT assets that are all over your environment and beyond the reach of centralized governance and monitoring. So, if policies exist but enforcement is inconsistent, compliance drifts. And unmanaged endpoints, well, that's where risk continues to compound, right? That's what we're working to fix and to talk about in today's series. So I've seen environments where devices were technically under management, but enforcement wasn't validated. So there was no one or no thing ensuring that policy was enforced at the operational level. When questions were asked by leadership, and I've talked about these questions in the previous weeks, those questions went unanswered and they were left wanting. And that's not a position you want to be in when your leadership is in need of information. Some would say it's not failure, but it definitely is drift. And drift can absolutely turn into failure because at scale, drift multiplies. So imagine if you were to scale your environment from a company, I'm going to say you, a company were to scale their environment from 2,000 devices to 5,000 devices or 10,000 devices without visibility, structure, no control, or security. When drift multiplies, exposure multiplies, and multiplied exposure creates huge risks. Okay? This is not where you want to be. So let's talk a little bit about government and enforcement. So governance, this is where many organizations get stuck, right? Governance says what should happen, but enforcement says what is actually happening. Well, enforcement actually ensures that it actually does happen. So you can have policy on paper, but you've got to enforce it. So governance is policies are defined, controls are documented, oversight is assigned, but enforcement is policies applied, controls validated, compliance measured. Where governance is static, it's declarative, it's necessary, but insufficient on its own. Enforcement is dynamic, it's operational. It's where governance becomes defensible in practice. Okay? So if compliance reporting requires manual validation, you do not have enforcement. You have hope. Hope is great, but enforcement is invaluable. Okay? So moving right along, like I said, we're going to do this in 15 to 20 minutes. Today we'll talk, this next slide is about security maturity. So security maturity is progression, right? So it's going from reactive to proactive, from manual to automated, from fragmented to centralized. And automation, it's not just convenience. We talk automation and everybody's like, oh, that's going to make my life so convenient. It is convenient, but it's not just convenience. It's also protection. It's strategic and it is necessary. At an enterprise level, manual oversight does not scale. You can't just throw people at it. You've got to be proactive. You've got to get automated and you've got to have centralized, unified governance across all endpoints and environments and organizational layers. That is what security maturity at scale looks like. All right. So we're going to move right along. I think this is going to be the most important thing to many of you. If you are unsure where your enforcement maturity stands, I'm offering a 15-minute mobility security readiness brief. It's not a demo, it's not a pitch, it's a structured view of your environment. So you get visibility integrity, you get enforcement strength, and you get governance defensibility. What are those? Visibility integrity is all of your endpoints are known, they're inventoried, and continuously monitored. Enforcement strength is where your policies are actively applied, validated, and measured in production. And then governance defensibility, that is, it'll posture your organization to withstand audit, regulatory review, or board level scrutiny. You will leave knowing whether your model is structurally secure or quietly exposed. So I would encourage you to get on my calendar and let's just talk through it. It's not going to be hard, it's going to be simple. We'll talk through it, we'll see where you're at, and we'll talk about the next steps. Okay? So, in closing, as I mentioned, week 1 was about clarity. Week 2 was about clarity debt. Week 3 was about control. And then week 4 is about that security, right? So if you go to my LinkedIn posts, you can catch the replays on all of them, including this one. We've talked about today repairing the ship, securing the vulnerabilities, keeping the water out, right? So you and your organization remain afloat and thriving, not just afloat, but afloat and thriving. At this point, you should be scheduling your 15-minute mobility security readiness brief with me in order to ensure that these steps are taken to both strengthen and secure your mobility environment. So we know that clarity builds confidence, right? And control builds defensibility, but protection ensures it holds under pressure. So when pressure comes, and we know pressure will come this week, as I mentioned, this weekend is an example of that. Pressure sometimes comes when we least expect it, right? When pressure comes, that protection is going to ensure that that clarity that you've built, that control that you've built will hold under that pressure. Next week, we'll shift from securing mobility to extracting more value from it. Because once governance is stable, the next question really becomes, are we optimizing it, right? So hopefully you've already invested in structure and security, or you've at least scanned that QR code to get on my calendar. Let's do that review. Let's talk about your environment. Let's get you up to speed. Week 5 is going to be about making sure that your investment is working harder for you. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week at the same time. Until then, let's make it make sense. Sips up.